So, hello and welcome back, everybody, for another special edition of the Cosmic History Codes with me, your host, David Farrell, and of course, joined by my wonderful friend and teacher, the one and only Leslie Shankman. Hi, Leslie. How are you doing?
Good. I'm really excited to talk about these stellar messages of April 12th, which is such a pivotal day, as you've pointed out in many wonderful ways, for instance, with Stefan. But now we've got this whole level of messages coming from the stars, which is just going to enhance what's been seen. So,
Right, exactly. So, we're not going to be repeating any of the material that we've been looking at astrologically with our friend and brother Stefan, or indeed on the Quantum Compass with myself and Bella, looking through some of the Mayan filters. But today we are going to do exactly what Leslie just said. We're going to be looking at the stellar messages coming through the filter of the astrology, but really with the stars behind them, they're getting activated on April the 12th. And as we've shared in the other videos, that's quite a bit. So, how do you want to set this one up, Leslie, before we get into your slideshow?
well, first, I do want to say, what are the stars? It's us. It's our soul particles. They're worlds that we live in. They're the cells of our light body. So these are just messages for our own self, from our own self. And it's really, I think, important to get into that orientation because the
Okay.
messages are potent
They
and
are.
we're hearing it from ourselves. So we'll go through that.
Isn't that the beautiful thing about the Antares Code and the Stellar Nations pathway is that the stars are part of us, and it's as above, so below. It's like the stars are mapped out down here on planet Earth. It's not always easy to see that, but the more I've looked at that, Leslie, the more I can see the different cultural aspects, the different nations. Even our brothers and sisters down in Australia and New Zealand sometimes feel like they're on the opposite end of the universe, which down here on Earth is about as far away as we could get. So there are all of these different nuances that the more that you feel into the fractal holographic nature of the universe, you see as above, so below, and as within, so without. So really, we are the universe, but most of all, we are the stars. And I love that because it's how our soul can talk to us through the imprints of these stars. So hopefully, we're going to bring
Exactly.
some of that through today for everyone to feel
Yeah,
in.
we'll see that in the first few slides, and then we'll just jump into what's coming through each astrological body and what is that message from that particular stellar world or part of ourselves, part of
Awesome.
our light.
Looking forward to it. So let's get into the presentation. As always, Leslie is super prepared and has done a slideshow for us, as we like to do here on the QPW channel, just to make things nice and visual. So let's just
Okay,
let
I'm
that
going to
happen. All
just get
right.
this started, and I do want to hide the control panel so I can see my own screen. Just a second. Okay, great. So the way I'd like to start this, even to extend what we just said, I'm taking a quote from Jose Arguelles from the Mayan Factor, Path Beyond Technology. And there's the Akines, I'm not sure how to say it, but it means the servant warriors of the sun. So let's feel ourselves as servant warriors of the sun. And those are humans who fully realize the dream light body within the physical body, understanding the circuitry of the human organism. And they use, or we use, our light body to navigate the electromagnetic waters, which we call the universe. But for this to occur, all we need to do is to reverse our view. It's not the physical body that is primary, but the light body, which is
Right.
exactly why I'm so happy to talk about these stars because it's getting to know our light body, right?
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Right. Next, what I want to say is there's something to be aware of, and I heard you on Stefan's show, which was excellent, and I hope people listen to, um, talk about the sun having consciousness. Yes, the sun has consciousness. It's a star. It's made up of all of us. And we have a very specific relationship with the sun. When we're coming down into incarnation on Earth, uh, each of us as a soul at the gate of birth has a very specific and unique and unrepeatable stellar and planetary bridge that happens around us because at each moment of times there's different qualities in time. And what happens is like by resonance, we pull in those soul particles that are going to be what we are in essence, that we're going to bring down into our physical distillate to use because we're going to be concurrently in our light body soul and and in our physical body. Now we're only becoming much more aware of that now, and we can actually feel and track it. I mean, we've lived most of our lives not, but now we're in the light of the photon belt. So when the soul starts to descend in the ethereal birth canal, it makes its way through an energy field which bears multi-dimensional consciousness. And all those upper levels are woven of stellar beams, but the soul's coming down, it's lowering its frequency, and it arrives at the sun's gate. This is the entry point. And here the soul starts to get connected to its incoming personality and its etheric template. It has a blueprint from all this, from this stellar remembering field that's placed within us at the sacral field of the sun. And we receive a special blessing here from an ascended master who's connected to us, who is a teaching presence and may show up to us from time to time. And we're always surrounded by our stellar remembering field, although we're not aware of it, but we can be aware of it. And it's very empowering to be aware of it, because
Right.
that's how you get to know your light body and then do the switch that perceptual switch that Jose talks about.
Mm.
So this comes down to, why do we want to know the stellar forces? Because if we can call something by their name, we become capable of having an understanding or control of it. We can accept it. So when we get to know the stellar powers and their qualities, there's harmonizing and recoding forces that are sent by the celestials that get a meaning, like all this light and all this impulses that we talk about, the energy we feel, that meaning opens up a memory or revelation in our consciousness. And then the spiritual power related to it can work from then on. So it really opens us into the vastness of our multidimensionality in a very coherent way. I always call it being grounded in boundlessness. That's what I love about knowing the stars. So April 12th is just such an amazing day, and you spoke about it in a very complete fashion with Stefan. But we've got so much going on. The full moon is in Libra, 23 Libra. It's right directly opposite Chiron in Aries. It's square to Mars in Cancer, trine to Jupiter in Gemini, and then also Venus goes direct, 24 Pisces. So what I'd like to do is just go through, what are the stellar messages coming through these? I mean, we're not going to speak deeply about the astrology. We'll assume that's been spoken of in other programs and people know.
Beautiful.
The first, let's look at the full moon first, because I was kind of envisioning when I saw this day, the moon, as a blank canvas, as a receptive field, getting the light of the sun, our sun, and illuminating and spectralizing that light out. But what is the light of the sun coming through that day? What are the stellar rays? Well, we've got three. We've got Spica, 2412 Libra. It's got a big orb at 4.5. Arcturus, 2435 Libra, 4.5 orb. And Neckar, also in the 24s, 2.5 orb. Let's see what each one of those stars is. Spica is an eighth dimensional star. It's an angel star. When I say angel, we have the supposition, the stellar nations tells us that we basically have strands of galactic DNA. We have different stellar soul families inside of us, and we contain all of it. Angels is one of those soul families. Each one has a certain pathway, certain set of stars, certain learning curve. But Spica is an eighth dimensional star, and it's absolutely non-polarized. It is pure light. And that's not the case with all the stars. I mean, you may think, oh, the stars are up there, they're higher consciousness. No, there's fifth, fourth, sixth, seventh dimensional stars. There's always a little bit of catalyzation from polarity. Polarity just works differently on those levels. It's not quite so yin and yang like the third, but there's still a catalyzation from polarization, except on Spica. Spica and Alcyon are pure light. And Spica as the angel star, this is where the divine mind opens up huge cosmic eggs of ideas that will be launched into creation. And the star is full of our angelic parts that are kind of rhapsodizing about the brilliance of the divine mind. And the angels are part of creation that are going to shepherd creation. They're going to guard it. They're going to make sure it's listened to. They're going to try to help it as it manifests in the different dimensions. So the angels are rhapsodizing here, and the star basically gives us the message. This is a part of us or creation that guards, that keeps, that protects the work of realization, the dreams of creation. When we get into the headset or the space of Spica, we can understand the principles of fate. We understand that everything's happening by divine will. There's depths of divine will, and we stop seeing things as we do in our physical distillate, like, oh my God, this is horrible, this is the end. We don't see the polarization in the same way. So the whole feeling of Spica is soothing unsettled souls with a heavenly understanding, where the understanding that it's heavenly intentions that actually direct life.
Mm.
So that may be a stretch from this perspective, but it's a true reality and it's a part of us and it's coming through the moon to the collective as a message to us.
Well, isn't that part of the situation now, Leslie, bringing heaven to earth? And, I find it interesting that on this full moon of illumination and balance with Libra, that we're given this opportunity to embrace the cosmic eggs of creation, maybe even to receive our own eggs of creation for us to unpack and see what is being offered to each of us or the collective from the heavenly realms as we seek to bring them down into the manifest realm. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, I think.
It's totally true. And the one thing that I think we're asked to grow into, and that comes by understanding our stars and our light body, that heaven exists. What is heaven? There are these different realms of experiencing, and there is the possibility to be close to the divine mind, and it's a different experience.
Yeah,
And we're actually all of it.
of course.
So the other star that we've got here is Arcturus, which is also an eighth dimensional star. And this is a male serpent star. And the male serpent aspect of ourselves, the Grandmaster is Melchizedek. And Arcturus is where what we know as the tree of life or the Kabbalah radiates out. It's like the divine mind of God coming out in very fine, at that point, obtuse spirit form, because it's not in created matter yet. I mean, all these orbs of knowledge are about, well, how do these rays, these invisible rays and these ideas, what are the energetic principles? There's an orb about alchemy, there's an orb about sound and color, there's an orb about life, there's an orb about death, there's an orb about total renewal. So there's an orb about the geometries of mathematics. But what those are, they're descriptions of the energetic principles that bring this invisibility or this idea into substance and into actualization on different levels. So Arcturus holds the spiritual keys of knowledge and teaching. It's a mystery school. So what are we hearing from that in the moon? I mean, we're with both of these, with Spica and Arcturus, we're hearing like the highest level that we can apprehend at this point, or in our created universe. I mean, there's more, but we're hearing the highest level. We're hearing that this is accessible to us. This is part of us.
Could we
And
say, Leslie, that this is a bit like the how? If we're seeing the speaker as the possibility of the eggs, and then it sort of has to come through this, because this is also an eighth dimensional star, right? And I think is it only a male serpent star, or does it have any other?
no, it's only a male serpent. But that's a good point you just made. You said, well, it's the idea and then it's the how,
The how,
right?
right?
Yeah. The interesting thing, though, just to know, there is a little bit, Arcturus itself does not have a shadow quality, but there is a little bit of a shadow quality associated here because a group of male serpents came here as the final initiation in their pathway, and they didn't pass. And of course, at this point, they knew so much. So they just couldn't swallow it. They kind of broke off, and it started some of the fallen nature of, oh, we know so much, let's create our own matrix.
That's
And
fascinating, Leslie. Sorry, can I just make a comment on that? Because you just got me thinking about so much. And it's like, well, we've been working, of course, in our tribe, which you were a part of, with the mystical column, of which the tree of life, the world tree, the toroidal field is all very much part of that. And, what we discovered was that somehow that had been hijacked at one of the points. So we might consider it maybe the crown chakra or the throat chakra, that's still open to debate. Or maybe we can say it was at the solar plexus chakra, all of which is a representation of the toroidal field of Mother Earth. But it's also symptomatic of the misuse of knowledge, right? And we've done that route before, and here we are again in this sort of new sci-fi world that's incoming with lots of new tech, and again stories about the white dog being resuscitated from the bones of some ancient animal, and it's like, is that a good thing? Are we proud that we've managed to bring an animal that perhaps evolutionarily should have died out, or maybe didn't,
oh
or
yeah, I just saw that. I know that was
and
crazy.
so it makes me wonder whether this is where we see the misuse of this power. And of course, we're also into the rerun of the Atlantean piece, whatever that was, maybe Tartaria too, if you're into those kinds of rabbit holes, and that's a conversation for another time. But I think this is maybe us being given the opportunity by upstairs, by creative source, by Great Spirit, to have another go and learn from the mistakes, take the gifts, shape them, work with them, and then bring them down. Does that make sense?
No, I think that makes total sense. And I can also point out when Bay and Aniko were taken to Arcturus to apprehend this through the star Antares, where the records are, they were shown directly each orb. They were given what each orb is, how it works energetically, which is kind of different than the traditional Kabbalic teaching. They were also shown, which traditionally in you see it as a 10-orbed tree of life. They were shown, no, there's 12 orbs. And I don't know if these two were purposely kept back or were just emerging into apprehension of it. But the orb here is the knowledge of the stars, and then we're going into the knowledge of the divine. Um,
I tend to think
so
it's the latter one. When we were doing the mystical column with you and our tribe, of course, just a few weeks back, that's what came through to me and Bella when we were meditating into this particular image and asking about the 10 and the 12. It's like, well, two of them were removed as a way of actually keeping us under control. Because if we don't know about that information, it's much more difficult to access. And of course, other people do know about that information and kept it for themselves. And so I think what we're seeing here is the revealing of the true nature of the mystery school of the Melchizedek order as it perhaps was meant to be rather than the more hijacked version.
yes, and I can also, I'm going to say, I'm going to keep this short, but there's always layers. It's like an archaeological dig with the stories on the stars. It's our cosmic history. It's
Of course.
the trajectory of our consciousness and what we've learned as experiencers. This is in Libra. Libra is the scales, right? That teaches us about balance. Libra is actually at one point, they're the claws of the scorpion. Well, at one
Mhm.
point, a male serpent recruiting station, a female serpent recruiting station. There's a lot of fighting and bad blood between the masculine and feminine. Feminine got duped into her making Chiron trample on the bears or the heart. That's a bigger story. But the point is, at one point, Archangel Michael came, needed to kind of reset this story, set
Mhm.
those two stars as Libra. So there's a backstory here. Also, the Arcturus and Spica are very close as far as their degree, but they're not close. Archangel Michael actually put like a line of energy to sort of attach them, almost as if Spica is watching over Arcturus away or holding it in line. So all this becomes, whether we know it or not, these are the energy patterns that are in our cells we're waking up to, and that's a lot of what we're clearing, whether it's conscious or not. Very deep inner energy patterns of all kinds of snarls.
Right, there's a
Yeah,
lot.
there's another male serpent star on the moon, and that is Neckar. And if you the Bootes constellation is in the shape of a man and considered to be the portrayal of Melchizedek, and most the stars on that constellation are different male serpent stations. But Neckar corresponds to the crown chakra of the Bootes constellation. And this is where the divine mission codes enter. It's
Mhm.
a call to teaching that provides a perspective on the divine realms. So if you think of us as getting these stellar messages coming into us as individuals, but also as a collective consciousness, I mean, maybe it's like feeding two sides of the noosphere. You know what I mean? We're as humans asked to start putting our intent to grow our consciousness field as the noosphere. But in a way, I don't think the stars just they don't feed into the noosphere. We're the transmutation agents. They come down, these rays come in and really vibrate at this core crystal of the earth, and then they come back up. But it's our mission to embody them.
Is this a male serpent star too, Leslie
This is
Nectar?
a male serpent star. Yeah, because it's on the crown chakra of the booties.
But isn't that
So
interesting what we just talked about, the cutting of the crown chakra? If we're not connected through our crown chakra, it would be difficult to receive our divine mission codes, right? At least consciously.
yeah, yeah. No, there's a lot of advantage to not having that cut off by any forces.
Yeah. Well, we can understand that this is also the disconnection from God, from Great Spirit. It's like here, this is where we connect. Yes, we have the soul star and other chakras, but it's really here where everything enters into the hollow mind perceiver or our sensory perceptual third eye, pineal gland, and all of the rest of it. So I think that that's about to get illuminated. We're going to loop back to all of this, but to me, that it's those first three stars have already blown my mind about, now I'm seeing the picture. But now we're going to go to Chiron, right?
Yeah, now Chiron, interestingly, is directly opposite Spica. So you've got, well, when you see the stars on it, you'll say why it's interesting. Beta and Catos in Aries, Delta Andromedae, which is a Pegasus star. Beta and Catos is a dragon star, and I'll explain that in a minute. Acamar is another male serpent star. So, Chiron being our biggest wound versus our our grandest possibility that we've just seen in Spica Arcturus. So the we have the nature of polarity that we deal with reflected to us even by the way the heavens are set up in a way, how they can come to rest in us. So we're asked to deal with these soul aspects in the harder physical level. Anything we do in the physical to move the energies is going to reflect back and evolve our light particle, our soul, as well as, I mean, we're using our body and our physical incarnation really as kind of a leverage point to grow our light body. So Bait and Katos is a fourth dimension versus that higher eighth dimension. Anytime you get down to the fourth dimension, when you have awareness of higher dimensions, it is so constricted. It feels like you're frozen in a rock.
Yeah.
And this is literally like a prison. It's in the belly of the Cetus constellation, which is conceived of as a sea monster. And it's a galactic seat of judgment. It's a chamber of mirrors. It's kind of like a karmic school. It's like when your soul has gone so far into sort of losing its orientation or basis, you get pulled down here by resonance, really, to, let's say, have a timeout, to reflect, to see what do I do? Because it's where you're seeing in the mirror constantly, and you're asked to recognize the transgressions that you've made against the cosmic laws. You're seeing yourself, you're seeing the cosmic laws. It's just this flippy thing. Um, the release actually comes from surrenders. Like you finally go, oh my God, there is a real efficacy to the cosmic law. I want to be back with it. The cosmic law is I can have mercy. I can be taken back at any time. Huge humility that has to happen. Not easy to surrender completely, but surrendering and accepting mercy gets you released from Baton Katos. And that's a way of recognizing cosmic law. And then when you've done that and you're released, you literally have the lessons of cosmic law. I mean, you've embodied them, right? So you're a different kind of consciousness going forward. You have uh, different abilities to participate in the creation.
So just to maybe to add something in here, Leslie, we did of course do a show about all of this last year because the Chiron Cazimi on that April 8th eclipse, which we've just kind of passed the year delta, basically activated the same stars. But now we're a year on, we've learned a lot more, we're perhaps in a more healed space. But I just want to clarify something that's kind of curious for me. When we think about the Cetus constellation, is it really a sea monster, maybe like a kraken or something, or is it a whale?
No, you know what? Honestly, it's actually in the Murian times, it was seen in the sky as an orca. And it's got a very protective it's got, in fact, it comes through the whale nation, which is also the aspect of the fallen angel reborn. And in that sense, that piece of our soul there is all about that guard against the dark forces. But the reason that it's probably seen as a sea monster is because the aspect of us that is in shadow and doesn't want to be called on it sees it as a terrible place to go. But in fact, it is an orca. I mean, if you go through cosmic history, when you read the stellar nations, many times it's like the veil comes off what we think the constellations are. We've come up with saying the constellation is X when underneath, no, there's a huge Black Panther. You know, it's not all these little constellations that we've conceived of with our Western mind over time. So that's a very astute question.
Well, the
Uh,
reason I ask is, of course, as some of our audience will know, and particularly our tribe members, about the difference between these two beings. But it brings up two thoughts. First of all, is that maybe originally we did go to the belly of the whale like Jonah did. I mean, Jonah's story in the belly of the whale is because he transgressed what God had asked him to do, which was to warn the people of the city of Nineveh or Nineveh about the need to repair their ways, which of course he didn't want to do because they were his own people's sworn enemy. So he didn't particularly want to do that job. So he ends up in the belly of the whale. But maybe as with many things in our reality, that is how it started out. But maybe at some other point, it became more of a sea monster. Maybe as things got hijacked, what was originally a more celestial place to reflect became something a little more challenging and more tortuous. But I don't know. I'm just putting some different things into the picture there.
that's a possibility, but we have to recognize that there was huge evil that happened.
Yeah, of course.
The dragon did black magic, merged with the angel, became a satanic force. There really had to be a place to pull that out of creation at times. So, but you're
It's
right.
all
I mean,
God's
I don't know.
work.
It can exist on all these levels,
Yeah.
actually. Okay. Now, this Delta Andromedae is a star that was only revealed in 2013. So what happened after all these stars were originally revealed, when they were asked to start expanding to stellar consciousness and put that into our field, or the Bionicle from Hungary, we continued to have the living forces of these soul families come forward as to grow our consciousness. You know, it's kind of like we didn't see Pluto till a certain time. We didn't see Chiron to the 70s. So we've been seeing more stars along the way. Delta Andromedae was revealed in 2013. That was the year of us learning Pegasus lessons. We'll talk about Pegasus in a minute. It's the part of us that's the divine messenger, very close to the divine mind. But here's an interesting thing, because we have Beit Ketos, as we saw, as a very restrictive prison, but Delta Andromedae was bringing in a very amazing healing sanctuary. It
Mhm.
was a dream field for redeemed Pegasus souls who had been on mission for a long time, giving out divine messages in different worlds within the people within themselves, and they were ready to move towards their home. And this is like a very special healing place. And that you kind of lay in waters there. Every crystal in the galaxy is there. And you can almost lay in the waters and see every Pegasus star from here. So you can recall all your memories and your skills that you gained from those experiences of being that messenger, that divine messenger. You can recall it at the highest level. And it's very interesting because the stars shine inside our body in certain places. In Hungary, they've developed a whole healing method called astrocosmogenesis, where you have, when they work on you, you know, if you're stuck in a certain point, it's a certain star you're stuck on. You know, it reveals a lot because it's related to certain lapse in a soul family. Anyway, Delta Andromedae shines in the body at the same place that the star Alioth, which is a star from the Big Dipper, which is seven wisdoms in the Big Dipper, reflecting Christ consciousness. Alioth is the star of forgiveness. So in 2013, our collective consciousness was starting to move into this understanding. You know, what are the levels of surrender, forgiveness of self, of others? You know, we were starting to move into a deeper understanding of ourselves, even though it maybe wasn't that conscious. And we've got Akamar, which is another male serpent star. And this was also just revealed, I think the year of the male serpents was, might have been 2014. Anyway, it wasn't originally revealed. I just put the words here so I could kind of do it justice. I won't read it, but this is where this is where you come. The male serpents, we have to realize, are constantly going through initiations about the right use of this knowledge. Their stars of initiation are along the river Eridanus, which is up in the Milky Way, and it's actually like in Egypt, the Nile is a reflection of the river Eridanus and all these initiations. So Akamar is one of the stars on this river of initiations. And this is where, as a celestial spot, we come into a deeper contact with a tree of life that comes out of Arcturus than we've ever known. It's like the 12 mysteries are projected into our own consciousness, and it brings just an extraordinary moment when we know a certain power of enlightenment that dawns inside. We just start getting inside the knowledge, and we see the system of complex relationships, and we become part of that. And it's like we hold the universe in our hands through with these keys of knowledge, and it's dizzying and intoxicating what you can do with this knowledge. So here's the initiation. The initiation is, what will you do with this knowledge? Okay.
Isn't that
The
what we just talked about with Arcturus coming through the moon? It's like, how do you
exactly
use the knowledge? Misuse it or use it properly?
right. It's like you have to be able to understand everything correctly, that you're going to integrate all that you know into the principles that move creation. You're not going to try to move creation. You're part of it. You're going to work in service for it. But when you know that much, you could move creation. That's part of the misuse.
Maybe that's
Um,
how the Bait and Katos piece kicks in, right? Which we'll get
well,
into in a minute
exactly.
in the review, because I'm already saying, wow, I mean, it's very clear, right, what this motif of
Right,
this
right,
boring
right.
Cazimi is.
So you really have to integrate these principles with the divine quality that they are. And you have to know you're being given a treasure. And you have to know, here's the part I bolded, I like this. Knowledge is to be used as a means for building the bridge between the consciousness of the universes, the worlds, the planets, the stars, and the human souls that have been separated from creator, universal light, wisdom, whatever you want to call it. So we're being called, whenever you see a set of stars, okay, I've told you Beta and Cato's, uh, Delta Andromedae and Acamar. These are three different frequencies, right? Well, what's the mission of us as cosmic humans? Is to balance and harmonize the different uh, stellar soul families. We were given the gift of these as ways to experience, and we were asked to balance and harmonize feminine, masculine, and all these 13 stellar soul families within us. We're like chalices.
Mhm.
So whenever you see a grouping of stars coming through a planetary body, it's like they're notes of music and we're the instrument. How are we going to play it? Are we going to stay stuck in Beta and Catos? Are we going to move on and use some of these other notes? I think it's really beautiful that before 2013, we didn't have Akamar and Delta Andromedae in our collective consciousness. We didn't have such a release, a possibility of finer notes. We had the squeeze.
Right. So
Okay.
I could just do a quick review there, Leslie, just as we move forwards, because so we've got on the one hand, we've got the full moon coming through Speaker, Arcturus, and Neckar, which is really about perhaps whether we're connected or disconnected to the eighth dimensional realms of creativity and beyond into the all it is, great creative spirit or God, however we want to phrase that. But then over here on the opposite side, coming through the wounded healer of Chiron, hence our deepest wounds. We've got a very Libra-esque option. Are you going to go into the Hall of Mirrors and perhaps reflect even on how you misuse some of the energy that Akamar is talking about? Or are you past that now and perhaps needing healing? It's very Libra-esque. Is it imprisonment and reflection, or is it release and healing? And it all seems to be about whether we know how to really use the divine knowledge that comes to us through the male serpent lineage, but particularly through these stars getting activated on this full moon. I mean, it's so precise, right? I mean, it's like we're being asked to reflect on maybe where we've made those mistakes before, and there are no mistakes, there are just experiences. We know that, but at the same time, we don't want to spend an eternity in bait and Katos, because if we're in a hall of mirrors, reflecting on ourselves gets, a little arduous after a while, and so we need that release. And so I see that this full moon and this Cazimi is offering us the opportunity to heal all of that and say, okay, we've matured. We're not just small humans anymore, but we're understanding that we're cosmic humans. And with this knowledge comes a huge amount of responsibility. How do we use
Yeah.
it?
And it's also realizing that we literally have a place at the table with the divine
Yes.
mind, that that we're meant to move into being co-creators with that energy. So it's a
That's
new
super inspiring,
recognition.
right? It inspires me to want to be more, to be able to sit at the round table with the other knights of God and say, hey, what are we going to do this time? Let's see if we can improve on the adventures of
Yeah,
the past and maybe make it more light-filled this time.
that's how we were really set out to be, to go through this development process so we could be that. But
Beautiful.
we have to know the vagaries of all the shadow
Yeah.
so that we can understand the extent of our light. And then when we start living in the light, it's almost like we need it cellularly encoded that we know we're not going to go back into that temptation, because we just know in ourselves that it doesn't work. We've transmuted it. It's part of us, but we don't have to do it anymore. Just like the Libra constellation, being having that backstory, it's part of what the inspiration of Libra is.
Yeah.
It catalyzes it from within, but it isn't. What part of that spectrum do we as a consciousness decide to live out when we're on in this life? That's a choice, actually, and we don't may not always know it, but that's always at work. All these kind of possibilities and urges. Where are we going to pick our landing spot, within cosmic law or not? Okay, so now we've got the Mars square the moon, 27 Cancer. We've got stellar rays coming through Mars being Procyon and Polex. And I'll just go through and speak
Oh,
what
good
they are.
old friend Pollux, the master of positivity, right?
No, no, it's the opposite.
I thought no, but no, Pollux is the guy who's not positive.
No,
Castor is.
no. Polex is the yin receptive force who tends to be sort of down and depressive if you want to take it to a very third
Yeah, yeah,
dimensional.
no, I was being sarcastic and ironic.
Oh,
I have
okay.
I
I
have
got
Pollux, and I've been accused of being very Pollux in my life. So I sort of know this star quite well and know my own inner Pollux, if
well,
you hear
I
that
got
correctly.
yeah. I'm not even going to tell you where these two are. I'm there in my code. I have to be masters of this.
Yeah, this is on my IC, so it's kind of embedded pretty deep. I've had to look at
Well,
Pollux
it's
a
on my
long time.
MC and Venus right there, opposite Chiron.
Right, we're on opposite ends of the spectrum then, right? But still having to
No,
deal with the inner
you and I
Pollux.
have a lot of opposites, which is interesting
True.
because, our Geminis are opposite. But anyway,
Mhm.
I'm going to start with Procyon. And Procyon is actually in Canis Minor, which kind of overlooks Sirius. Um, but actually, Bayanonico go, that's not a dog, that's a cat. Okay. So they call it Felix Minor.
Oh, okay.
And
Mhm.
Procyon exists. We have an experience of it in two different dimensional bands or frequencies. In in the stellar part of ourselves that is part of the great feline nation, the part of us that's a warrior, that stands up for the goddess, that uses the yin strategies of feeling from within, being strategic from within, and really believes, I mean, what it's standing up for, this part of us is free will, the right to sovereignty, the right for the creator to come through, the right for creation to use every agent, individually and not that mass control. So anyway, Procyon in the Felis Minor is seen as the heart of the cat being. It's in 2610 of Cancer. It's a fifth dimensional star. I mean, it's analogous, really. It's the same energy that Egypt considered the goddess Bastet, kind of watching over Egypt, watching over Sirius, a protecting a fertility, a mother energy, a keeper of home. Also, interestingly, though, there's in the legends of Bastet, uh, she's seen as the eye of the moon, and she rides with Ra at night to protect from Apept, Ra's enemy, who's the snake god. So there's a lot of this snarling of the underlying cosmic stories here. And I wasn't there. Didn't they launch something on the April 8th stellar eclipse? They launched something and they named it Apept, actually. They launched it to say, oh, this is the ideal time to figure out our atmosphere when we're not going to have light or something. There was some bogus excuse. I don't know if you remember that. But the
Was
fact
it the Artemis rocket they were trying to launch? Was it that one? Or I do recall there was something around that time. And of course,
Well,
all of these space
I may
launches are
have it
always
wrong
precise.
when they did it, but they literally named it APEP, which is hysterical in
Ah,
light of what Procyon is. So Procyon's a fifth dimensional star, heart of the cat being a good, sort of smooth, upstanding star, mission on task. Um, when you get to the unicorn nation, which is the aspect of us that has the dreams and our dreams magnetize creation into manifestation, Procyon is a fourth dimensional star. And it's thought that the difference between having a fourth and a fifth, the fourth dimensional star, which is the unicorn talking about our dreams, it's been crushed into the fourth dimension, the possibility for us to dream the same way because of the way creation was stepped on. You remove from the original divine plan, because in the stellar nations, you've got the great felines were betrayed and were pushed out of the galaxy, substantially killed or pushed out of the galaxy. So that's when our galaxy, the Milky Way Galaxy, tilted yang, and we have had a yang predominance ever since, with the feminine just coming back. So we've been living with half of our consciousness, essentially. So Procyon is thought to be like the crush of that. It's a fourth dimension instead of a fifth dimensional when you're in the unicorn part of yourself, the creative part of yourself, the dreaming part. It is such a heavy, heavy, alone energy. When you enter this star, it's like fire. It's hot. You're alone. It's foggy with mist. You can't see anything. You just want to fall asleep. It drags you down. It's an inner labyrinth. There's a part of you that even though you're dragged down and you want to fall asleep, you keep moving through it. You're trying to find something. You keep asking questions. It's a personality forming station if you have it on your code. But think of it in terms of the collective now. This is asking us, it's square Mars. It's asking us to look into ourselves. Because what we're asked to ultimately understand, finally realize that what we are is right inside of us. We are the I am that I am. Okay, then we're going to Polex. Castor Pollux are actually third dimensional stars in the Unicorn Nation and in the Cosmic Human Nation. They are representative of the yin yang, of the black white, this or that. They're two perfect opposites. Um, in our cosmic history, there was a time when they were so destabilizing to each other, they swung from one to another. They eventually found a rhythm, which we see as the yin yang, is kind of this continuous feeding of each other. And that teaches us how to stand in the middle to bear both the light and the dark. This whole idea of going back and forth between the yin yang and the two polarities offers us the learning process. It says we're responsible for our creative dreams. We have to find the center and balance. But what we're finding here, we don't have Castor. It's not an orb. We just have Polex. Pollux is the yin receptive. It's the feminine. And like you said, if you take it on a very third dimensional type of interpretation, it is almost like Eeyore. Oh, very depressive energy, as opposed to Castor, which is ridiculously Neptunian and pink and no shadow in the here. No, everything's fine. That's the third
mm,
dimensional exaggeration of it. But it's very much, it's a yin, it's the feminine aspect, it's receptivity. So whenever you find just one of them, which we're finding now, it means we need to pay attention to that aspect, that side of the working it out between the two is
mm.
not strong enough in us. We have to understand the receptivity. These two are actually at the highest representative of the lovers in the tarot. And what we're really trying to do with this polarity is develop the qualities of the god of the goddess and the goddess inside ourselves, and really realize that the highest decision is not between the choices, like, oh, yeah, it's higher if I go over here. It's about the completion that's beyond the decision. And it's a quality that makes you more if you can complete.
So this is just to recap, Leslie. This is Mars, right? That is kind of forming this square to the moon. So I think that we're getting some of the challenge here that
Yes.
perhaps needs to be seen through or dissolved or looked at. It can be tough when you only have one of these. I think also Castor and Pollux originally were the twins of Gemini, right?
Yeah, they
I
were.
mean, I know
Yeah.
that they're in Cancer now, but
I
originally.
know they show up in Cancer now. It's that confusing thing, right? But
But so we've got this kind of almost heaviness. Also, something because we featured the star Procyon before with Bastet, and what came through really strongly for me when I looked at it before in one of the shows I think I did with you was that this is the protector of women and children, and this is obviously something that has been a huge hidden trauma in our world that really is still needing illumination. So my gut feeling is that we still have to illuminate that plight, particularly of the children that Bastet is the protector of, because with the removal of the great felines, the protectors of the goddess, the natural protector for women and children hasn't really been in our universe. And so, speaking from my own perspective, I would say that this is perhaps something that definitely needs to be brought to the surface, illuminated and released. Otherwise, perhaps it could be a kind of a lonely labyrinth experience. But
yeah, no, I think that's a very good point. Yeah, there's just many ways to examine this and feel into it. And when we have just a Pollux addressing us, it's saying you have to develop the intuitive feminine side of our being. We have to develop our receptivity and our spiritual sensitivity. We really have to just get out of thinking that what we see manifest is the truth. The black and white, the two sides, everything that we're
yeah.
especially going through now.
Right. There's always one. This is the beauty of duality, that it's paradoxical. There's never just one truth. There's always two perspectives, at least, often more, but there's always.
Right, but then it even tells us what we're seeing there is we need to go beyond that to it. There's a certain kind of completion that comes
Yeah.
when you can go beyond. And as they say in the book, it's kind of sweet. It's a mystery.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's one of those, there's certain laws or something or areas that are just like, it's a mystery. You have to accept it. You do
It's a
it, you
bit
go
like when
for
I used to bother my lamas at Buddhist school, and it's like, so what happened before endless time? And they said, we don't ask that question.
it. Yeah, really. It's a mystery.
It's a mystery, and you just have to accept that one. I definitely bent my head and their head for months on that question until I finally had to accept that they weren't going to give me the answer that I was looking
All
for
right,
or
right.
provoking them into.
One of those cones. So
Yeah.
here, stellar rays through Jupiter, which is in trine. They're in Gemini. It's in trine to the moon. So there's kind of a friendly, agreeable, what are we going to learn here, I guess. Um, and Jupiter also being, if we want to go back to the fact that in the stellar nations, our sun is an eighth Pleiadian star, left its orbit, was given mercy and grace to set up our solar system as a way back to his destiny, set up the different planets as parts of his psyche or parts of Stanley. Jupiter actually was the exalted feeling that our sun had about himself. Well, this is what I really am, and I can deliver all these cosmic truths, and I will be this. And Jupiter also is a great arbitrator of bringing the higher knowledges that come out through some of the different stellar worlds um, into into the created worlds. So anyway, we've got Rigel and Cursa here. So I will go through what those stellar messages are. Rigel is on the foot of the Orion constellation, and it's a dragon star. And in fact, it's the home of the head dragon, Khan, Khan, who did have a great fall. But what is it further? Well, the dragons go through, I mean, it's a very um, young hierarchical path. Dragons are warriors who are asked to guard divine will. And there's a great deal of training, kind of like the Eastern martial arts, for the dragon pathway. And there's 8 major initiations. And the first 5 of them are in the elements. And literally the dragons, use the elements like we see elemental, the ley lines, how they create or they destroy. They work in matter in the way they need to, using the elements as a certain kind of energy or part of ourselves. But you've got the balance of fire, balance of water, balance of earth, balance of air as the first 4 initiations. No, so that's literally of the elements and the use of them, but it's also metaphysical. The balance of fire is how do we run our fire, our will, our determination. The balance of water is the balance of our emotions. The balance of the earth is the balance of the pranic forces inside our body and the awareness of them. The balance of the air is the balance of our thoughts, right? You cannot be a good warrior unless you are totally like in control of those things on that metaphysical level. Then you come to Rigel, which is the star coming through Jupiter. It's the 5th initiation. It's the balance of motion, kind of the ether, but it is the integration of all the others. What is this at the highest aspect if you're a warrior? And I kind of want to paraphrase this quote to capture it. This is what we're needing to learn. Last year in 2024, we always have energies coming in to integrate from our stellar aspects. Last year was the return of the dragon and the return of the great felines as 2 different aspects of the warrior. And they came in healed on a galactic level. That's a whole other story. But we've been asked to integrate it ever since then. But there's a very high meaning of warrior. So the way of the warrior, which resides in the invisible, is about equalizing polarities. And the warrior's objective is to create a sustained alchemical balance between the polarities of this world. As yin-yang represents, the motion is a constant flow in which the white and the black turn into each other continually. Each always becomes part of the other and remains part of each other and brings in dynamism of life and experience. However, there is a secret passage that raises existence beyond the games of polarities to the experience of the sacred center. So true spiritual warriors, this is what we're needing to learn, know that there is no attacker or attacked. There's no victim or winner. There's not a single emotion, or thought. And this is because the divine tranquility of eternal inner silence, the universal existence of oneness, overpowers everything. And in that space, the subjectivity of human life becomes a sacred cosmic event. We are literally asked to embody the full range. Okay, we're asked to become this. I mean, did that make sense?
It absolutely does, and I'm just going to give a little bit of a plug here, especially with the dragon stars, and you'll know this from having done the course yourself. But we look at a lot of this within how to balance your inner elemental dragons through the Heaven on Earth course. So if that's something that resonates for you out there listening to this, please do check out that course. But beyond that, I mean, it's like I've been watching this unfold a little bit in the collective narratives, Leslie, where there's still winners and losers. I'm like, if we're
Right.
still in the winners losers mentality, that means we still have more work to do because winners and losers don't really exist in non-duality. It's just a dualistic perspective. And so that's why I loved, the Eastern martial arts. I did Qigong and Tai Chi for many years when I lived back in Britain. And it brings us to that place of harmony and inner balance. And of course, working with the elementals a lot in my shamanic practice. It makes so much sense to me. We come to that place of ultimately it's all just an experience where everybody wins. But if we're still thinking I'm going to dominate over you in some way, whether it's through I have more finances, I have more power, I have a bigger house, I have a bigger car, etc., 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 whatever the dynamic is, then we still have to look at what's going on in that space because ultimately
Yeah.
that's part of the
No.
game.
So think Jupiter is bringing this in a trine, friendly messages with Spica and
Mm.
Arcturus. It's asking us to raise to the high level of the divine and to actually conceive that we could operate out of that we wouldn't have to be these polarized beings. The understanding of the polarity would be our foundation that we had grown beyond.
Or we could understand with Jupiter always wanting to expand that there is a more expansive way of looking at this. There is more expansion for everybody. Everybody can win. There is enough abundance for everybody. We don't
Okay.
have to have more abundance at somebody else's expense. I think that's the classic one that we're definitely having to work
Right.
through in this moment at the collective level.
Yeah. But once we get into that cosmic space where everything is just is, you don't, yeah, it becomes a moot question. But that's a big surrender. That's why you have to get out of, I mean, that's the how hard the surrender is to get out of bait and Bezos. But if you do that, accept mercy, because a cosmic law is, I will take you back. There is a river of mercy.
Right.
Just empty yourself out and I will lift you.
Yeah.
Okay, the other thing that's happening on Jupiter, Cursa is another one of those male serpent stars that's in the river Eridanus. And wherever Cursa shows up in your code or your astrology, in this case, it's on Jupiter, but wherever it is going to kind of give you a reflection of the nature of great and deep initiations into knowledge that's going to come to you as over time, maybe series of initiations of inner experiences that will transform you. And in this case, we're talking about it related to Jupiter. So we're talking about an expansive quality of going through initiations and realizations that we own from the inside.
All of which, of course, is completely necessary. You know, I've tried to share many times, or certainly me and Bella have, and you too over the last few years, is that this process of being human and becoming cosmic human is a series of initiations, and the male serpent stars really give us the clues as to what those initiations are, particularly if we are in the mode like we are of being teachers. I know me and you have both had to go through our male serpent initiations again in this life and see perhaps where we didn't pass the tests in previous occasions. And reflect on that, but also with this possibility, it's like, are we able to expand into those initiations, understand the importance of them, so that the next time we get the knowledge of the tree of life and of the universe, we know how to use it responsibly.
Exactly. We're just constantly learning. And in that sense, no mistake is a mistake. And that's where
No,
forgiveness
it's
comes in because you
exactly.
cannot learn until you truly learn, you know?
There's just experiences that we need to
Yeah.
process, really. So the
Okay.
final
So
piece, Venus. Mm,
yeah, let's just finish it up because on this amazing day of April 12th, Venus
wow.
also goes direct in 24 Pisces. There are four stellar rays that come through it. Three of them are Pegasus stars, and one is an arthropod star, all in this midpoint 23, 24, 26 Pisces. They're all with an orb. So just to back up and say, what is the Pegasus Nation? We're going to talk about it a little more. We've referenced it. It's the part of us that are emissaries of the Creator's messages. We are close to the divine mind, this part of us. We hear the call, we go to pick up the message, which is essentially a message of living news. It's like a flame in our being that we take and we, like a horse, like a Pegasus, fly to wherever we're assigned, a group of people, uh, another country. I don't know. It can be something in the 3B, it can be something inside of us. But that flame is leaving a line of light. It's creating a cosmic link between worlds that are separated or think they're separated. It's smoothing the individual worlds into the realization that, you know what, we're actually one galactic light body. We're all together. So this is the mission of the Pegasus. And now we've got three stars on Venus. Um, First, we've got the star Markeb, which is a seventh dimensional star. And this is actually, so you can imagine on the Pegasus constellation, it's right at the root of the wing. If you were just sitting on the back of the Pegasus, it's the cradle of the Pegasus nation. It's a cradle of the creation of this nation. It's where they were birthed from. And when you have this star, or now we're being, touched with it on the collective, it's saying, you know what, you're commissioned with a, a messenger service, and you're meant to guess my slide got cut off, but you're basically meant to, wait a second, I think I did a second slide that has not cut off. Okay, you're gifted as a Pegasus with the secret and secret keys of the dimensional passages. It's really quite something to be gifted as a Pegasus, to have that part of ourselves. You're trusted by the divine. You are sent out on mission. You are given keys to go through dimensional worlds and gates to get into different morphogenic fields. that are protected from energies. But it's like, no, I trust your energy and go deliver this. Um, it sounds like a wonderful part of ourselves. It is. It's a little more spirit than matter. We have to be very plasticine when we get a divine assignment. We have to kind of like become where we're going so we can fit in and deliver this seed. We can only stay a short period of time. It can be really hard to bring a seed and not see it come to fruition if we have to leave. You can have a lot of injuries as a Pegasus. You can start to feel like a failure. You can start to feel like, oh God, I'm always putting on a costume. I never show up in a place where I get to know who I am. There's a big burnout effect. You can go to huge dystopian worlds that put imprints in you.
Mhm.
And in fact, that has to do with this next star that was just revealed in 2013 also. So our collective consciousness was apprehending the need for the cleansing and balancing of this part of ourselves. The star Matar is a healing place. It's where we're aided to put down the acquired burdens that have been imprinted through all these different cosmic assignments. And the star is really quite magical. We're literally cleansed in each element. Like we come through a cone of light in the air element that takes out all the thoughts, the repetitive thoughts and the doubts. We go into the water element that balances our emotions. We go into the earth element that's like recognizes that our light body is just inaccessible. It's frozen, and it kind of cleans it all out so we can be our full range. So
Mhm.
each element has its way of acting on Matar. And then this is such a cool star. This star was also uh, discovered in the year of the Pegasus, 2013. Saddlebari. This helps us fulfill the mission of our incarnation. So whatever planet it's on, it's on Venus here for this day and this collective, for us as a collective. It gives us a clue about our incarnational task and what inner qualities and channels can help with that task. So what do we have to realize? Oh, well, we are connected with the divine mind. We do get messages. We are asked to be planting seeds and frequencies of divinity in different places. Now it's on Venus, so we can talk about that a little bit. What does that mean? I mean, it's about coming into the feminine, it's about coming into balance and harmony. But the fun thing about this star, if we as the messenger, knowing this is our task to be the Pegasus in this way, if we recognize that we need additional tools, we can actually connect to Saddlebari and um, feel our celestial siblings there, other Pegasus soul aspects, maybe our own soul aspect. But I mean, David, if you and I are on here together, I'm talking to you here, but we're also up, we're on, you know, we're there, we're siblings up there.
For
So
sure.
your celestial siblings actually is very responsive. It's very connected. They'll send light packages with new programs and encoded messages to provide missing and needed keys for actualization. If you have Saddleberry really acting in your life or a certain place, or it comes in on a solar return, it's like, what happened? Like something manifested. I had a desire and it came, some tool came all of a sudden. It's such a magical star. Um,
Much needed, I would suggest, too.
what did you say? I'm sorry.
Much needed. We'll do the wrap up on the Venus in a
Yeah,
minute,
yeah,
but
and we're
I
almost
can,
done.
yeah,
Yeah, we
I
can
can
wrap
see.
up, but then I have to say, okay, there's one note of third dimensional reality here that we have to still integrate. Arthropod
Mm.
soul family, beautiful family, runs the web of light through every created thing that collects information, sends it back to the creator so creator can respond. By collecting information creates records, Akashic records, so we have a final way of looking at our incarnations through the chamber of mirrored. Great service. We cannot evolve without the arthropods.
True.
The very fallen component of it, the different stars where the information, I mean, the web goes through everything, but there's certain arthropodic stars that are like transfer stations that take the information and package it through special technologies for the creator. a good many of the arthropod stars have been co-opted and taken over by fallen arthropods. Arthropods that don't want to stay within the divine matrix, that are the fallen aspect that we're still dealing with of our own self. And it's the big spiritual war we're going through now, the light versus dark. It's the fallen angels, the fallen dragons, fallen male serpents, and the fallen arthropods. Fallen arthropods, it's the circuitry. They have all the tools to take that co-opted, that vulnerable information, co-opt it, misuse it, send it back into our minds, our force field, mind control, miasms, run energy. It's that effort because they're fallen and can't get beyond the higher fourth dimension to keep us in that area and to basically use us as fuel. Now, let's not think of that as something outside of us. Everything is part of us. I mean, the Zeta Reticuli is traditionally known as like one of the homes of the Greys, right? The not very, always very nice beings, abductions, all that kind of stuff. But what is it a picture of? After all this information we've gotten about stellar rays and potentialities and the divine mind, this is a picture of what it looks like when you choke on taking the initiation. When, in the swell of life, just like the seasons, fall comes, the leaves need to drop, but you're like, I can't do it. And I want my own matrix, and I'm too afraid to do it. Well, you don't renew, you become gray. You need to take energy from elsewhere. So it's really just a mirror to us.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of poignant that it's here on Venus and with all these other stars. Again, it's like the notes of music coming through us. It's a very sober reminder, and it's something we need to transmute. And with that, I just wanted to,
Leslie, don't you think that the Zeta Reticuli star with Venus coming through it is offering us all actually the final initiation of compassion for the extensive ways that we have been prey? I don't want to use the word victims because it's all contractual. We all agree to all of this. But in this particular star, I remember looking at this before when I think we were doing the Saturn Cazimi, because a lot of this stuff came through not that long back on the Saturn Cazimi, but it's having a refresh now through the Venus filter. And it would be easy to, as you say, externalize. Oh, it's the mafia bosses, it's the bad guys, it's this because this star is also very linked to surveillance and program and basically
yeah,
the
yeah,
misuse of technology. The arthropods being very connected to technology, very much connected to three-letter agencies, how they've misused technology, all of that kind of stuff. And it would be easy to again fall into the trap of dualism. You did this to me. Therefore, it's your fault that I'm in bad shape, which in some ways is kind of true. We have to accept that. But at the same time, we signed up to it. And so, what's coming to me on this particular star, because it is quite a tricky one, and it is kind of the last piece that needs to be freed. The beings in that space need to be freed to come back also with us as we all ascend. And it's going to
right.
ask us to go to a place of deep compassion, particularly if we link this to Bastet. Now, some people might go like, well, how does that link? Well, it's like, well, if you think about the use of blackmailing and how all of that links to the stuff to do with the abuse of women and children, particularly, but also here there is redemption because everything has been recorded. So there is no way out for anybody. There is no
It's
way that
true.
you. So it's like everybody is in bait and Katos with these beings whilst we help them find their own release because when you're in the belly of the beast it's like everything is coming at you over and over and over again, and so what do? Normally you project it out and try to give it to somebody else because you don't like it, but ultimately you have to come to the place of saying, well, how am I involved in all of this? Well, I just shared quickly a story from myself. I did a journey back into this star. I don't actually have this one, but I did a journey into my own arthropod stars, and I realized, of course, that on other timelines I had also participated in these activities, experimenting on people, putting things in, taking things out, and generally being a bit like that, which was not a very pleasant experience for me to have to confront. But I realized it's like, okay, in this life, I've been on the wrong end of this a lot, as indeed I think most of us have. And so that's where I found the ability to release my feelings towards all of those things. It's like, hey, it's all just another part of the story, another part of the game. And if I can come to a place of balance around all of this, then I'll feel a lot easier. And I have to say, since I did that journey about 8, 9 months ago, which I shared with you, I've actually found all of this a lot easier to deal with. I don't have that perception anymore. In fact, I have compassion for the beings who are having to operate from that space because they're entrapped and they can't elevate beyond this kind of jiggery pokery, so to speak. So I don't know. Does that resonate, Leslie?
Well, it completely resonates, and it's coherent with all with the rest of the messages. Because if you think about the spiritual warrior, or you think of
Yeah.
developing Pollux because of Castor and Pollux, that's that center point of finding, above the polarities. And compassion is one of the seven seats of Christ consciousness on the Big Dipper are definitely platforms that you can stand on when you find the center point and you if you can sustain them, you can sustain that Christ consciousness, which is you can go down into the polarities to bring the frequency of compassion, the frequency of forgiveness, but you're not going to be engaging it. You're going to be side of a soldier that brings that as your tool. And compassion is a yes, I totally agree with you. It's very important. That's exactly what we have to find. Those Christ consciousness qualities that hold us in that place so that we can help lift this. The other thing, it's tricky about this because the whole reason the arthropods lapsed is the ones who lapsed felt like victims. And there's a whole victim mentality in this. So it's sticky, it's icky, it's webby. You just have to be aware of all this. But compassion is one of the tickets for it.
Hashtag learn to love your inner gray. That's what I had to do.
Right. Get it back to black and white and
Yeah.
then to above that.
Right. Well, I
Not
was
even
meaning more my
black and
inner
white
grey beings,
anymore.
my inner grey arthropod self.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, that's all we have for the stellar messages. With
Mm.
this picture, because it's kind of like, look, we can weave this. This is it. This is part of our, this is part of what we can do besides astrology and all these other wonderful terms that have come through for us to realize ourselves.
Yes.
Knowing the stars is one of them. I did put in, we can put this book, Stellar Destinies, it's been out. Well, it's a long story, but it's been growing since 2005. It's just cosmic history that's really good to know. But it came out in English in e legitimate ebook last year, and then a lot of people wanted an actual book, which just came out last month. So we can put that, it's available. And I also want to mention, if you're curious about the stellar nations and this whole idea I'm talking about is moving from planetary consciousness to stellar consciousness, this is the 20th year of, it's like an anniversary of when Bayanonico were first approached and asked to expand to Antares and catalog all this. That was in 2005 and 6. I actually did a YouTube that is a reading of the introduction, which is telling you all that experience. So if you want to, you go on a walk and you want to listen or lay there, we can put this in the show notes. Just the whole
Absolutely.
experience of what it was to be two humans getting approached. They had a lot of stellar consciousness and were flying in the Pleiades and all the time, but they were asked to go beyond to Antares and get our cosmic history. So
Wow. Well, there
that's
you have
all
it, everybody. Thank you so much, Leslie. And Leslie's far too humble to mention that the book that she just showed was actually just been rewritten by herself. So congratulations, Leslie, on that. I think that is really wonderful. I received my copy from you the other day. And of course, my beautiful partner Bella also just had the whole of the original Stellar Nations Volume 1 and 2 with all of the different nations featured. She translated it into Spanish, which is also now available in
amazing.
hardback.
Yeah.
So I received both of those books in the post, and I'm so happy for two of the most wonderful ladies in my life to actually have produced those books. They're beautiful things, and yes, they're. I mean, there's something that you treasure. I think that they really are turners, Leslie. I love that phrase, and we've used it a lot. But congratulations on that, and definitely recommend people to check those books out in whatever language works for you. But just to loop back over the notes in our sort of final sort of 3 or 4 minutes to wrap this up, Leslie, I think hopefully the story has come through as clear for everyone watching this as it has for me. There's a whole sequence happening there which is about, first of all, not being polarized and learning to work with duality, seeing the trauma in the world, particularly through the zeta reticular eyes, but also understanding what was the trauma that caused the trauma to happen to us. Because there's always, the abusers have always been abused at some point, or there's some kind of backstory. So I've learned over the years to really go further and further back and say, hey, in the end, we all kind of have gone through the same process. So trying to blame the person that did this to me does not in any way factor in what happened to them. Doesn't mean they should have done it to me, but at least I can understand how the food chain came down. And of course, then you have to do the same process with yourself and see how you behaved in certain ways and why you behave like that. So in the end, I think this is a great leveling plane to look at things from the eagle's perch perspective. But it seems if we go back to the original stars of Spica and Arcturus and Neckar, we've got this whole kind of disconnection process at the crown chakra, which has disconnected us from universal consciousness. We got things disappeared out of our wisdom library, particularly two orbs, which probably helped connect us. We then have the probability of why that happened is like, well, you misuse the information. Maybe we had to be disconnected deliberately so that we wouldn't keep misusing the information. Hence why you need to spend a bit of time in the belly of the beast, looking in the hall of mirrors and to reflect on all of that. But hey, there's a healing sanctuary just next door, so you can take your pick which way you want to do it, right? And in doing so, you'll remember, oh, how did I get here in the first place? I remember, yes, I misused
Yeah.
my power. So we've got all of these really, really beautiful redemption opportunities for everybody. This is a mundane reading. This is through the collective astrology with these really powerful filters that we're using. And of course, all of that's coming through Chiron in Aries, which is about my wounding of me. I am. What did I do? Oh, I
Right,
think
right,
I need
right,
to
right.
refix all of this. We then have the beautiful aspects that the trine with Jupiter is giving us a slightly different perspective on, just to amplify the possibilities. And then we've got the Venus star point, which is really, I think, the final initiation. It's like, how in your heart are you really? Are you in your heart when it suits you? Can you be in your heart with the people that you perceive to be the ones that have caused you harm? Or maybe in the case of the Bastet star, that have caused harm to other people, particularly women and children? Because that's right in the ethers right now. And I think everyone watching this will know what we're talking about. And it's going to come up like a bad burp or worse. And it needs to come out, and then it's done. I definitely have been sensing some of that in the collective the last few days, and having like a sense of something wanting to come up and out that didn't feel like it was mine per se, although I'm sure there was some of me in it. But I was like, what is this? And now I have a pretty good idea of what it is. So if we can all hold that space collectively, Leslie, and understand the beautiful gestalt that you painted for us there through those wonderful stellar messengers, then I think we have the route through this. And this is open to everybody right now. It's not about whether it's hitting your own stars. If it is hitting some of your own planets, then you've got another layer to look at this through, right? So, do you have any final thoughts, Leslie, before we close out for today?
No, I think you captured it, and I just want to say, if it sounds fantastical, these stories, these are metaphors for energy patterns, and the energy patterns exist within us, and it's about the energy pattern becoming quite active now, through the frequency, and then bringing us into remembrance. It's about remembering. It's not about recreating something. Um, it's about
Right.
remembering what we really are and then rising up into that. And we've got, with the different stories, we've got just some of like the awareness. It's a tricky field, but yet we can do it. And I
Absolutely.
think it's very optimistic, really, that we have this very high thing coming through the moon. And we have like Rigel saying, the balance of motion, you can take all these elements, you can be the
Yeah.
highest warrior.
Yes.
The definition of warrior coming beyond what we don't know any. I mean, war to us is horrible. It's just,
Yeah.
but it's a sacred task to uphold something in a high way.
And you know
Yeah,
what?
so I don't think I would say
Oh.
any. I mean, people can take it where they want to, and that was a good summary.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, just you prompted me a couple of final thoughts, and then we will close out. So the inner elemental piece is actually where we can see our triggering, normally down to too much water or too much fire, or sometimes a little less of some things. But if we have our inner elementals balanced in the way that the great dragon pathway shows us, because our inner elementals are our inner primordial DNA, we can say, from our Draco ancestors in some ways. And if we're getting triggered or bent out of shape with dualistic, polarizing ideas, it's Probably, I would suggest, because one of our elements is out of balance. And so the trick is then to go back inside, see, is it my fire? Am I too with the Mars energy? That's too much fire. Am I getting way emotional? Too much water? You know, we can really understand our triggering through the imbalances internally. So again, just pointing to heaven on earth. And also, if you're feeling disconnected, myself and the brother Pete Jackson Main did a wonderful deep dive onto St. John's Wort, who is actually my crown chakra ally. Why? Because he's great at receiving lots of light. So
Oh,
if you want to
wonderful.
check that out, I put it in the show notes. But Leslie, thank you so much, sister. I really, really love these videos. I know our audience who follow and watch your
Yeah,
work do too. And I really hope that with the other shows, with the astrology that we've put out, that this adds another soul layer behind it, because this is exactly what I'm feeling. This is the point that we're at. And yes, of course, we have another big full moon in Scorpio coming up in May, but this is a really critical moment. I know everybody is feeling it. And I think what you've done beautifully here through these stars is show where we need to look to see what our initiations are in our male serpent lineages, and also to see where the woundings are, and not to stay like the fallen arthropods in the place of the victim, but just to accept, this
right.
was all
And
just
and
part of
there's
a
a
great
strengthening
design.
of the feminine too. We see
Yes,
with
yes,
how does Venus like get back into being the messenger? Well,
yes,
you see in Mars how I forgot my point. But oh, the polex, the
yes.
polex. We have to become sensitive to that feminine. We have to be receptive. And then we've got the moon itself showing us it's
It's
this
the moon,
plain
man. Yeah.
orb that's receiving the sun's light. It's receptively full now, getting it all and sending it out. So I mean you could go on and on with the contemplations, but thank you
Well,
very
they're all
much.
good meditation points, and as that final full moon in Libra is wanting to show us, it's about balancing our inner masculine and feminine, not about balancing males and females in the web, because we all have masculine and feminine energies, but making sure that we're balanced on the inside. And after eons of perhaps too much external yang energy and not enough yin, we can see that the return of the goddess through the great feline cat beings, especially, but especially in this case, Bastet, and Venus, most importantly, is wanting us to go deep into our heart space, because that truly is the place that we connect to the higher
Yeah.
dimensions. And I think that that
Well,
is
and
what this is all about.
it becomes a mirror. Castor Pollux is a
Yes.
mirror to the what the Libra energy, and they both have like a cosmic history to them. So everything's kind of, I mean, when you get in the middle of your Antares code, you're in a spherical hologram of everything coming in once. And, you come into spherical time. You don't have
Yeah.
the third dimensional one, two, but you have to learn how to like be Rigel with the balance of motion as things are coming through. Like it's all coming through. But what do you hear? Where do you feel your consciousness? What are you going to take from? Yeah, this is another conversation. Let's try to stop because we always go too long. Thank you, audience who stayed. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. For everyone who made it this far, you get a gold star in the chat box. Please let us know. And as always, do hit like and subscribe. We are on a bit of an upward surge with our YouTube platform at the moment, but everyone who comments and asks questions, of course, Leslie will be looking at the comments, as will I. So if you have some questions or need further pointers, please always check the show notes. I put quite a lot of effort into the show notes with links and stuff. And there's a lot more to learn about stellar nations. And perhaps some of you out there thinking, hey, this is all just beautiful, but a bunch of stories. Well, in the end, everything that we are perceiving is all the story and the dreams of great spirits. So it's all the story and it's our story. So enjoy it, have fun with it.
Yeah, let's write a
And
really good story, okay? We
it's a
are the
really good
authors.
story, right? It's got everything you need. It's got heroes, villains, gods,
Yeah,
goddesses. It's
yeah.
got everything you want, and you can keep adding to it because it's all our story, everybody. So thank you, dear sister. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please do continue to go inwards and look at all of this stuff, see how it's affecting you, because every time one of us does this powerfully with clarity, we put it into the collective noosphere, which is going to help all of us move and ascend through these more challenging days of the ascension process a little more easily.
Exactly. Yeah, you know what? I always think it's like we're changing the water in the fish tank while we're trying to live in the water in the fish tank. So
Yes, that's a tricky one, huh?
yes, it
Personally, I
is.
prefer to be outside of the goldfish bowl these days and feed myself
All
from the
right.
kitchen cupboard rather than waiting for
All
someone
right,
to
we're
cook it.
gonna straight pull in our Geminis and and say goodbye.
Alrighty, everybody, take care.
Okay.
See you all again very soon for another edition of the Cosmic History Code. Bye for now.